Thank you very much for Professor Najan. What concerns me very much is the quality of life, and I take the climate as crisis, as us human beings, every one of us, or humanity, as an opportunity to cooperate together, so we will cooperate better in the future. Suppose that we will come out fine in some future, right? So to do that, we have to tackle, like what Professor Najan said towards the end, the point about national cost, or when we measure in terms of money, GDP, and instead of something that really matters to us. And I want to talk about dignity and how I would propose to measure that. It's just to give us some idea, because the measurement would simply be a ranking instead of assigning them a definite number. So this is the outline for today. I'll talk about self-respect, which is something that I do spend a lot of time on in my PhD research, and dignity, and then it will be and then it will develop into dignity, and then the capability would be something that Amartya Sen talks about, and relate that to economy, and in the end about cooperation. So I'll be quick. All right. So on self-respect, it's very simple. What is it to respect someone? It is to act on respect for someone is to act all and only he intended that one act. So you just do all and only whatever he wanted, you do that. Whatever he doesn't want, you don't do that towards him. Of course, we don't always have a full degree of respect. Sometimes we respect someone within a certain restricted domain. So respect is not always complete and total, fully justified respect. So respect could be restricted, and there are degrees to that. So along that line, we can also talk about self-respect. It's simply to act on at all and only what one intended that one acted. So it's something like doing what one wanted. Of course, that want has to be rational, but I will leave rationality out of the question here for the moment. And then what along that line, self-respect, I can talk about dignity already. So autonomy is something, maybe a Kant, some idea from the Enlightenment philosopher Immanuel Kant, self-legislation, autonomy. I take that as the power to act on self-respect. It seems like, how is it that we don't act on self-respect? How is it not that we are not acting on self-respect? I think a very typical example would be, because we talk about when in the discussion of euthanasia, we talk about how some patients do not live with dignity. Along that line, dignity is like you're limited. Either you don't have the positive liberty to do, like you don't have the positive liberty to do, if you want to write a good poem, not everyone can do that. And negative liberty is something like you are limited, and you can't, there are things you can't say, the words you cannot use. So these things are interact with your autonomy. And dignity, it would simply to measure the amount of freedom that you have, which it will use some um, 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 apparatus from philosophy about possibilities, possible worlds, if you are familiar with that. And roughly speaking, informally, it's how much one could have done what one would have wanted to do. So if you wanted to do that, how much is it that among those that you wanted to do, you can do it? So that's very roughly the idea of how I would want to measure dignity. So, and to relate that to some current literature about the capability approach, um, of course, it's not like we can want. We are to rationally want everything wanted. I suppose I wouldn't want to fly unaided, because I'm limited by my biology. And similarly, there are capability that I don't have, that I would not want to have. And so how much one would have wanted is restricted by our capability, what our potentials are, and how much we will have developed our potential should interact with the distribution of resources, such that we can maximize power in terms of how much you can do to act on self-respect. Because, well, to use my old example again, we don't have to dedicate resources so we can be able to fly unaided, even if we're not supposed to want that, because of our by design, our biology isn't like that. So economy. So this goes towards my idea of trying to have a better common measure of instead of money, because money, in the end, yeah, with more money we can do more. if I had the money, I can travel the world thrice, right? 3 times, but I don't. And but in the end, money is only a means to an end of a better life, because I want to think about quality of life and how the standard is kept. We want to keep our current standard, and how much more one could have done with one's life interacts with the money we have. So, and I take this as a very difficult example towards many economic theory, because a monk that chose to go into life without much food, ascetic, right? He lives a very good life, right? But he doesn't use that much money. He might have even given up his money, right? But he has the positive liberty that we don't have. He can have a luminous meditation. It's a mental state that most of us are not familiar with when they do meditation. So that's his life goal. That's what he wants to achieve, and he has that. And if we think about that to bring the discussion, especially with climate change, back to our quality of life, then we can talk about something more in the future. It's because there are many more human existential crises in the world. And okay, so because I want to go back to cooperation, we always wanted a cooperation with an outcome of win-win, right? But we are not always, we don't want to set in stone what the win is. Someone wants to get what they want, and we want to get what we wanted. But getting what we wanted, the content of what we wanted, I think the best way to measure the outcome is simply that we can get what we wanted, instead of having determined what the content is. Of course, a social contract, we sometimes have to lay out the terms, what it is that we are transacting, and how we are to limit each other's intervention. But in the end, if it's only about maximizing dignity, the win-win situation would simply be everyone getting what everyone wanted to do in the future. And that kind of distribution of dignity would measure how good the outcome of a cooperation is. And that's what I want to propose. And as a side note, a monk deserves the power to meditate, because that's his self-determined way of life. So he has the capability. So this would be a case that I would keep thinking about, because it doesn't involve that much money, but it matters to the quality of life a lot. And with this underlying philosophy, we can talk about climate change, because when the environment become unfavorable, besides the climate refugees that they have to move away from their own original habitat, even with worse air, it's worse. So we can't do as much as we wanted. We can't go out freely and breathe and enjoy the sunrise and enjoy the beach. Well, and with the pollution on the seashore. So this also affects dignity. So with that, I can talk about why we should care about climate change, instead of only talking about human extinction and especially only with economic damages. So yeah, so this is it. That's what I want to say. Thank you very much.